Hi, this is Brandon Ford, and welcome to another remixed edition of the Blind Rage podcast. This time around, it is episode 5, the 1984 Wes Craven classic, A Nightmare on Elm Street, which was originally posted on November 9th, 2020. Now, there is something important I need to disclose before we get into the commentary. Let's just say that the company who owns the rights currently to the franchise company that I'm afraid to even say, because even the smallest indiscretion could probably get this video blocked, but they do not approve of any kind of Freddy or A Nightmare on Elm Street content being uploaded to YouTube. That is their original content. Okay. So I don't even know how people get away with posting, little clips in their reviews for the movies, or even clips from the movies themselves, because I've tried to post several of my commentaries for Freddy's Nightmares, and they were immediately blocked and taken down. So this time, since I have the solo commentary track without the movie audio, that is what I'm going to post, because I know that if I post the movie audio accompanying the commentary, this episode will more than likely get taken down before it even gets uploaded. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's just going to be me speaking into the ether. And if you want to watch the movie to know exactly what I'm referencing, then you're going to have to find your own source. Sorry. But I hope you enjoy the commentary nonetheless. And before we get into it, I would just like to encourage everybody to check out my books, in particular my most recent novel, Drowning in Oceans of Black, which is available in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and most recently audiobook format. And you can find a 12-minute sample of the audiobook format read by Michael Butler right here on the Blind Rage podcast YouTube channel. Sometimes I forget where I am. I guess that means I'm getting older. So yeah, please check that out, and check out my other books on Amazon.com and Audible, which you can easily find by typing in Brandon Ford. If you don't already, please follow me on Instagram at writer Brandon Ford. Please check out the official Blind Rage podcast Facebook page to like and subscribe. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, critiques, suggestions, recommendations, feel free to email me directly at blindragepod81@gmail.com. All right, so I hope you guys are ready to go, because we're going to get into the movie in 3, 2, 1, play. If this was 5 or 6 years ago, in my B-movie bonanza days, I would never, ever, ever be doing a commentary for the original A Nightmare on Elm Street. Not because I am not a fan of the movie or hadn't been a fan of the movie, but the purpose of B-movie bonanza was to shine some light on some B-movies, some underground movies, some obscure titles or movies that I thought were obscure or overlooked or underrated. And A Nightmare on Elm Street, as fantastic as it is, fantastic but flawed, is about as mainstream as it gets. And it really annoys me, because I've always been a hardcore horror fan, and as a matter of fact, Elm Street is what helped me get into the genre, as I'm sure it had many others. But when you meet, I'm like I said, I'm a hardcore fanatic, and when you meet people and they act like they know horror and they claim to be aficionados and that they are well versed on the genre, and then you say, "Oh, cool. So, what are some of your favorite movies?" Generally, the first thing out of their mouth is A Nightmare on Elm Street, and of course, it's followed by Friday the 13th and Halloween. So, whenever somebody says, "Yeah, I know horror," and it's followed by my favorite movie, or some of my favorites are Elm Street or Friday or Halloween, that means they've probably never even seen a single horror movie. Um, so yeah, it's way too mainstream. I love it, but it's way too mainstream. And I have to say this: these opening scenes with Freddy terrorizing Tina by calling her name with the Tina. Um, and I hate that it triggers this, but it always brings back memories of that awful, awful, awful movie Chainsaw Sally that for some reason it has a following. And Chainsaw Sally, who was, I think, a librarian by day and a psychopath by night, is terrorizing a girl named Tina in the woods or something, and she's throwing out a few Tinas. And it was obviously an homage, a very, very obvious homage. That baby crying has always been very, very eerie and disturbing to me. Um, so yeah, I always think of that terrible movie. And the girl who played Chainsaw Sally, I don't know if she still does, but I know she did convention circuit for a while, and she signed 8x10s. God knows why. Um, Anywho, as I said, the first horror movie that I really remember, I'm almost positive, and I flip flop back and forth because I can't be 100% certain. But the first horror movie that I remember seeing ever is a movie called Truth or Dare: Critical Madness. And I'm pretty sure the one that followed was Blood Diner. They're pretty close together. I think Truth or Dare is 86, Blood Diner is 87. So I think Truth or Dare would be the first one. And Blood Diner is more of a comedy anyway, so if you're looking at it objectively, you'd have to go with Truth or Dare being the first horror film. So I I don't think I was about 5 or 6, and I don't think it was a movie for little kids. That goes without saying. Um, I'm not going to go on a truth or dare tangent, but it kind of bored me. I remember as a kid, um, not because it was bad, but because it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. And my sister and me, who'd rented it together, thought we were getting a movie about teenagers or um, post adolescents playing a game of truth or dare where awful things happen. But that's not what we got. And I think I don't remember how far into the movie we got, but I do remember we were turned off by it. And it wasn't until several years later when I got the DVD from Netflix that I saw it. And it's a pretty unsettling movie, and there are some definitely some pretty disturbing sequences. But enough about Truth or Dare. I believe A Nightmare on Elm Street was, or the franchise was the franchise which got me into the genre. And I remember being about no, 7 ish, because yeah, because part 4 came out in the summer, I think August of '88 theatrically, and I am a summer baby. I was born in '88. I'm, I was born in '81, so I was about 7 at that time, and I remember my father had gone to our mom and pop video store, and he had just come back with a rental, and I asked what he'd gotten, and I remember him saying A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, and I couldn't believe that they were actually going to let me watch it. So I remember watching it last night and just being in awe of the film, the effects, the kills, the overall grossness of it, and the villain. And it became a fascination and obsession with Freddy Krueger. And I can't remember if it was before or after I had. It might have been after, but I did have the Freddy Krueger glove, the replica that came out around the time with the plastic blades. But I, growing up, okay, I don't know if I want to go down this path, but growing up, my mother, I think she always kept an eye out for the things that or I treasured the most, because they were the things that she would use against you if you were being punished. Those are the things that would be taken away. And I must have misbehaved. I must have done something, because that glove got taken away and she forgot where she hid it. So, and I was very, very not happy about that. And they didn't make them anymore by that time. So I made my own. I don't remember telling this story before, but I did make my own. I got a regular old winter glove. It was yellow and black. Was not intention. It was not necessarily a bumblebee pattern, but it had yellow fingers and a yellow thumb, and a thick black strip across the back and the palm area. And I got 4 long nails, and this really heavy duty tape. To this day, I don't remember what it was called, but it wasn't Gorilla Tape. Definitely wasn't duct tape, because duct tape sucks. But it was white, and it was really thick, and um, it held quite well. And I remember going out and terrorizing some of the neighborhood kids with that thing, which was not a good idea, because I could have put somebody's eye out. And yeah, looking back on it now, I kind of wonder why I never understood why so many parents, adults in the neighborhood, didn't like me very much when I was a kid. Um, but yeah, the obsession and fascination began. Oh, come on with this porno sex here. Um, and by the way, too, um, I had only ever seen the TV version of this for the longest time. So I never knew that there was that. I don't think it wasn't until I got like the Video Treasures version on VHS that I knew that there was some, background chicka chicka bow wow going on. But I just remember in that scene it was cut to the point where Rod is pulling off of Tina, and he kind of rolls over, and they're done. Um, so I don't remember which order I saw the movies in. If I had to guess, I would say I'm pretty sure part four was the first one. And because part four did very well theatrically, I believe I saw three on network TV because they were playing it around that same time. And then it wasn't uncommon, especially during the weekends, during the afternoon, for there to be a double feature of the first and second one. And that was probably how I saw those. And I do remember seeing part five when it first came out on video. And I saw Freddy's Dead theatrically in 3D, and I saw New Nightmare theatrically, and unfortunately, I saw Freddy vs. Jason theatrically. Um, so yeah, thus began my Freddy fandom, and I'm trying to think if it was when the Never Sleep Again documentary came out. I always thought this was an interesting touch with the pebble throwing, because it's something that I don't think guys do. They just send a text now, like teenage boys, if they want to get their girlfriend to come to the window or come outside or whatever in the middle of the night, they're not going to throw pebbles. But I thought that was, because Freddy always kind of romanticized the murders, especially when he was messing with the female characters, who he went after more than he did the male. Almost positive of that. I think he definitely liked toying with the females characters more than the male characters. And yeah, so that was him, like, kind of, showing up as a lover, trying to get her attention for a midnight dalliance, which was a nice touch. And the way the pebble implants itself into the glass was a nice touch. And I was going somewhere, and of course I forgot. Yeah, so, the Never Sleep Again. I'm not sure if wasn't until Never Sleep Again. I think it might have been, actually. But it wasn't until around that time, I'm almost positive, that I never put two and two together with Freddy being a pedophile. Because there were never any suggestions of any kind of sexual contact with the kids he killed before he killed them. He was always referred to as a child killer, and that was it. It was always said that he brought these kids back to the boiler room where he worked and killed them. I couldn't talk over the "This is God" line. Um, so when they started talking about it in Never Sleep Again, I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. But, I later found out, as I'm sure everybody else did, that the molestation of the children was, they say it was played down, but it really isn't. It was taken completely out of the movie. Because, like I say, there's nothing, there's no. He's more sexual with the teenagers. This is so corny now. Um, he's more sexual with the teenagers, but you never got, or at least I never got, the any inclination that there was a sexual component with his wrath on the smaller kids. And I think that's probably a good thing because it might have really fucked me up watching these movies when I was a kid because they really didn't have any effect on me at all, if I'm being honest. I don't remember ever being frightened of these movies. And I do remember this is another scene too that I remember, especially when Tina's blouse gets ripped open and the slices go across her chest. Um, and how bloody she is, and when she falls, um, a lot of that, well, the majority of that was cut for the TV version. Um, so I didn't know any of that stuff. It's always interesting because for, I wouldn't say very many, but there were a decent amount of, no, I wouldn't even say a decent amount. There may be a dozen, not even that, probably, I don't know, under 10 movies, horror movies specifically, that I'd seen on TV first and recorded first and had watched over and over again before I actually saw a rental version or an uncut version on a cable or whatever. It didn't go so far as, my never having seen it until the DVD, but it was a long time before I saw, or at least it felt like it, John Saxon in his toupee. R.I.P. He just passed away not too long ago. I know that Marge, mother here, is meant to be an alcoholic, but she always seems out to lunch to me. Heather Langenkamp does a really good job in this scene, especially the line coming up now. Hang on. No, wait. When she says it, it always gives me chills because she delivers it so well. Here. I remember I saw this theatrically during the 20th anniversary edition, and it amazed me the way people were laughing at some of the most inappropriate moments and things that I never thought were at all comical were putting people into hysterics. I think the biggest laugh in the movie is when Nancy looks in the mirror and she says, I look 20 years old. The audience completely lost their mind over that line, which it is kind of silly. But when you're all of like 16, you don't want to look 20 necessarily. And mm, I think she probably could have exaggerated it a little bit. She probably could have said 30 or something like that. Um, and by the way, I want to mention this because it always bothers me. Um, and I'm two things bother me. One, in the original, Springwood is never mentioned. The town is never mentioned. Nobody says Springwood. It's supposed to be any town USA, but the palm trees kind of give away that it takes place someplace in California. But it's definitely supposed to be Middle America. So there's that. And then people always assume, I'm almost positive, I'm 99% sure that they never say Ohio. But people always assume that Springwood is in Ohio. And I think it's even in the Freddy's Nightmares TV series. But in the movies, I don't remember anybody saying Ohio. I can't remember the crawl that's at the beginning of Freddy's Dead when it talks about how there was one surviving teenager discovered in Springwood. It might have said Ohio, but I don't think so. There we have Lynn Shay. I think this was her first movie. It's, she clearly got her career based on her brother, Bob, Bob Shay. But, you know, it's interesting because she ended up becoming a fantastic character actress. And I don't know anybody who doesn't love Lynn Shay. And I remember this getting a big laugh too. I always get confused because you see Tina in a body bag twice, and I always confuse in which scene the centipede comes out of her mouth, or millipede, whatever it is. Wait, I think it's here. And I remember that was cut too in the TV version. I don't know why. Apparently, insects were um, too offensive for TV. Is it? No, I don't think it is here. Yeah, I think it's later when you see when she has all the snakes and shit. Um, I think that the side of the snakes too was trimmed a little bit, and it was like they were boiling too. You heard the like a bubbling sound. No running in the hallway. Okay, I promise I won't do the Freddy lines, but it's impossible not to because there's a lot of them are so good, especially in the early films. I remember hearing somewhere, I don't remember where, but a lot of the one-liners were Roberts. He made them up on on set. He made them up on set, either during a take or he went to the director with his idea, and yeah, um, a lot of them ended up being in the movies. Um, he was Robert. Robert is very intelligent, and he was very good at improvising, and he came up with some great lines. I know that the best. I mean, I don't think I'll get any disagreements here, but the best Freddy line in all the series is "Welcome to Prime Time, bitch." But the um, this was definitely cut when he rips open his sweater. Wait, is that right? Did he cut it? I missed it. Um, um, and the tongue. He had a thing for wiggling his tongue. That was always cut in the TV versions. And Piggy. He doesn't say Piggy that often, but he says it in a couple of them. And I think part three is namely where he says it, and that was censored in the TV versions. Why am I doing a side by side comparison? Um. Anyway, but back to the one-liners. Welcome to prime time, bitch. And this is it, Jennifer. Your big break in TV. Were two lines that were both in the script, and I don't think that they could decide on which to use in the movie, so they used both, and it ended up working really well. But that those two were in the script. But I know a lot of them were Roberts, and I could totally be making this up in my head, and I think I might be. Um, or I could have read it somewhere. Um, but I think I can't say for sure. Because again, I don't know what I made up and what is real. Because I'm in a dream. The same thing, they tried the same thing with Jackie Earl Haley in the 2010 remake. And I mean, they had him improvise some lines, some one-liners, and try to test things out. And not a one worked. They were all so dumb. They were not funny. They were not clever. They were not even decent puns. They were just stupid. And I remember one of the dumbest was, "Why are you screaming? I haven't even cut you yet." Really, Grandpa Kruger? He sounded 80 years old, and that was not a good Freddy voice. And, um, I revisited, because when it first came out, oh, I want to say this too. Jesus Garcia says in Never Sleep Again that he had a substance abuse problem when he was filming this movie. And he didn't say exactly what substance he was on, but he said I think he used it to enhance his scene, enhance his performance in the scene. And it didn't, I don't think it worked in his favor. He seems to think it did, but I don't think it did. I think it made him, I probably could have saved her if I only act sooner. I think this is really bad. This is not good. I would have, there was this guy. It's not good. Um, but anyway, getting back to the remake and the awful performance by Jackie Earl Haley, there were so many things, so many issues I had with that movie. And granted, I went into it expecting to hate it because only one person can be Freddy Krueger, and that is Robert Englund. And I know that I'm not alone in that assessment. So I really wasn't keen on the glove being passed. Um, and I didn't want to like Jackie Earl Haley, and I never even heard of him when the movie was cast. So yes, well, you know what? I did go in wanting not to like it. However, the first time I saw it, there were some things that I did like, and they primarily had to do with Katie Cassidy. I liked her in the movie, and of course, she ended up being the first to die. Um, Kyle Gallner, who is a fine actor, I like him as an actor. Um, he didn't belong in the movie, um, and neither did whatever the hell her name is, who openly said that she didn't want to do it, she didn't like doing it, she just wanted to do it for the money and the exposure. So yeah, they picked a hell of a Nancy. Um, but I had so many problems with that fucking movie because I revisited it, I think a year or so ago, and it was the first time I'd seen it since it first came out. And luckily, I was able to find a version with audio description because there were a lot of things that I missed the first time I saw it. My vision was a little bit better than it is now, but it wasn't great. So there were times when I couldn't tell what was happening for sure. But with the audio description, I was able to follow it a lot better. And the opening scene I thought was also not good, where the kid is in the diner and he cuts his own throat with the knife. But in the dream, Freddy is holding the knife to his throat. Let me ask you this. Why does Freddy need a knife? He has four. Why didn't he just use one of his claws in the dream? Because in the dream, it's never actually what happened, you know? I mean, I'm trying to think of examples, but I can't right now. But the nice little Evil Dead homage here. But when you're in the dream, you may be killed a certain way. Like, for example, when Kincaid dies in part 4, I don't even think it was really explained. But I think he had like some kind of heart attack or something. But he was stabbed in the dream. So my point is, in the dream itself, instead of using the steak knife that was on the table, Freddy could have just cut the kid's throat with his claw, and then in real life, the kid was actually using the knife and cut his own throat. Or that's the way it looked in real life. Um, and another moment in the remake that I fucking hated was the flashback where Freddy is running from the parents and he's screaming, "I didn't do anything," and he's like crying, and that made Freddy, the character of Freddy, um, I think that was probably added because his crimes are brought into question later in the film, and you're supposed to believe he was innocent after all, which I thought was stupid as well. But and it's seen in both the pilot episode of Freddy's Nightmares and in I believe in Freddy's Dead. You know, because Freddy doesn't cower to anybody. Freddy doesn't run from anybody. Freddy isn't afraid of anybody because he's Freddy fucking Krueger. Um, this is a really good scene too. Um, eh, um, Although I think it can be confusing in some moments because it kind of looks like he Glenn is in the dream with her, but he's not. He's sitting next to the bed watching her sleep. So when she calls out to him, he's answering her from his seat on the bed. He's not really in the bushes. But, you know, if she's asleep, how could she hear him? I like that delivery. Yeah, so um so it is a little confusing. And what I never really understood was when Nancy sees that something's about to happen to Jesus Garcia's character. What did she expect Glenn to do? I, I, I mean, I know that he was there to wake her up, but he couldn't, or she couldn't save him in the moment. So what? Even if Glenn was able to wake her up, first of all, it's not going to. It wouldn't remove Freddy. Freddy would still be in the cell. Freddy would still be, you know, tying the sheet around his neck. He would have died regardless. Is what I'm trying to say. Um, Here he comes. You can't even say that maybe she wanted him to witness what was happening. There are definitely some things in this movie that make no sense. And yet, everybody gives part two shit because Freddy crosses over into the real world. Here's Tina in the body bag. There's the centipede, millipede, whatever, and the snakes. But then that was weird that they used the body bag twice. I think is one of my favorite parts. One of my absolute favorite parts in the movie, in the original, is the scene that's coming up in a few seconds when she says, "This is just a dream. This isn't real," and he comes crashing through the mirror. Here comes. Oh no, this is the stairs. Hang on. This is stupid. I will say that this is stupid with the mask and Tina's voice, and he removes the mask and he shows his face. That was stupid. I like the stairs. That's a good scene. But the mask is dumb. I will say that. Here it comes. Ah. I think if people were seeing this for the first time, that would have been a pretty big scare. Hmm. I remember watching Heather Langenkamp on the I don't know if it was one or two seasons of just the 10 of us that, that the show lasted. But I remember I always thought it was the coolest thing ever that you had Heather Langenkamp and Brooke, is it Thies or Thice from part four? They were both in the show together, but I never knew because in Never Sleep Again they say there was three characters from the series, and I never really paid any attention to that girl on the bus. To me, she was basically an extra, so I really didn't give a shit. She wasn't a central character. Okay, wait a minute now. Time is kind of shifting here because I Freddy was in the cell when Nancy was dreaming and watching through the window. Where did he go? And now he's coming back. So why he didn't kill why didn't he kill him in the first dream? I wonder how many cops John Saxon played. She's very earnest in this moment. Just go down and look at him. And we're like, put the keys. Oh, come on. So, and nobody hears him screaming. I know that I had seen Jesus Garcia in other stuff, but I didn't know it was him because I didn't know that he wasn't using his real name in this movie. And plus, he kind of looked different. I remember he was the teacher in the not so great Devil in the Flesh 2 with Jodie Lynn O'Keefe. I don't remember. I don't remember who the other one was right now. Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, because the scene with the cemetery, and you see you see the tombstones. I think it's in part four. Yeah, it's got to be in part four. When you see um, Kincaid's tombstone, and you find out for the first time that his first name is Ronald, and it's just always kind of bothered me that they gave him that name when there already was a Ronald in part two, because that was Grady's first name. But everybody nobody ever called Kincaid Ronald, but um, Grady's father calls him Ron. My feet are cold. She's a little loopy here. I think it's because she hasn't slept. I remember too in the theater, when the mother tells her to hop into the car, that got a big laugh, and that got a big laugh too when she says, "I've got something better. I'm going to get her some help." I don't know. I guess she was just kind of cheesy in her portrayal of Marge. Charles Fleischer. See, with the last episode, it was trying to get the Tylenol PM without making a sound. Now I'm trying to put a pair of socks on without making a sound. And I failed already. Really, you think that's all that's going on? When Marge asks, "Is she asleep yet?" and she says, "Yeah," it always irks me the way she says, "Thank God." There it is. Thank God. It sounds very French. And we're smoking in a hospital. Ah, the 80s. I wonder if this. I have considered going in for a sleep study because I'm a troubled sleeper too, and I wonder how much of this is real and how much of it was fabricated for the movie. Like if you can actually tell if somebody is having a nightmare based on the numbers on a computer screen. I think this was a plot device that they introduced early in the series, where you're able to, as long as you're holding onto it, you're able, while you're going from being asleep to being awake, you can bring something out of your dream. Um, but it's something that I don't think was utilized as much as it could have been in the sequels. Which, by the way, Wes Craven is not a fan of at all, and it kind of irks me that he's just not a fan of the sequels that he really had nothing to do with, and he, in the Never Sleep Again documentary, he called Part 4 trash. I don't know how long she's been awake now. I would say 2 days. Well, no, probably a day. Well, I wouldn't exactly call that little episode at the Dream Clinic, or the Sleep Clinic, a good night's sleep. Um, um, but you could tell she's a little high strung. But Jesus Christ, when I have not had a good night's sleep, I'm not only not good for anything, but I'm also not very pleasant to be around. And by the way, too, I just want to mention this because I I do want to do a commentary track for Session 9, which was a movie that I saw recently and really, really liked and was really creeped out by. And I'm not going to say which podcast. Oh, I'm not going to say which podcast, but um, they reviewed it, and it was reviewed by three different people who had three different ideas of what exactly was going on and three different explanations. One of them thought that the I think it was the David Caruso character who ended up being the killer. His reason, was it him or was it no who, well, whoever the other guy was who was the killer. His reasoning for killing everybody was because he had uh, DID, um, dissociative and disorder. Anyway, he had multiple personalities, which I no, I disagree. Um, but the other host of the show, who is generally pretty, well, he hates everything. I'll say that. Um, but his reasoning behind the murders was because the character was sleep deprived. Okay, so because the character was sleep deprived, he murdered his whole family? Really? Okay. I think I talked over it, but I always thought it was kind of a funny line when she looks at the bar or she sees the bar since she says, "Oh, gross." Um, I don't really think bars are the answer. If you, well, this doesn't make any sense either. Um, she says these bars are security and security from a person. So obviously, we know who she's talking about. However, she goes into the basement and she tells Nancy the story about Freddy Krueger and his demise, well, and his murders and his ultimate demise. And she ends it with, um, but he can't get you now. He's dead. So if he's dead and you know he's dead and he is not a threat to Nancy, then why did you put up all those bars? Where does that make sense? I can understand her taking down the trellis. Um, or making it so her bedroom window wasn't accessible from the outside, but putting bars up on all of the windows to protect your daughter from a phantom who you don't even believe really exists is kind of like, huh? What? Okay. No. It's amazing how when there are some movies that are so flawed, yet they have so much else working for them, and they have so many more redeeming qualities that you can forgive all that. And this is definitely one of those movies. And Halloween is another one, too. Halloween is a deeply flawed film, yet it is perceived as a masterpiece, a perfect film, a perfect horror film, and it's not. It's a great movie. It's one of my favorites. Absolutely, I do consider it a classic, but it's not perfect at all. I don't think I would, even the movies that I hold at highest esteem. I don't. I wouldn't say anything. I wouldn't say they were perfect. I don't think there's anything that I've ever read, saw, listened to. Maybe I'm not really. I think the only thing that you can say as far as art is concerned is, as far as perfection goes, are some of the classic works of art by the world's most talented painters and sculptors. And the Michelangelo David is, that's a perfect piece of art. um Movies like Halloween, again, while classic and um while groundbreaking films, were not perfect. See, now I wouldn't be too sure if he was going to do it because he just hung up. And I think it's interesting too that he's watching, or he's planning on watching, Miss Nude America with on a regular TV that clearly has no cable. I don't think that would have been on NBC in 1984. And we have the stock, like, fucking bonanza music or whatever the fuck it is. So it's past midnight. He's late. Why hasn't Nancy called to wake him up? Or did she say it's almost midnight? I think she said it's almost midnight. I fucked up. I'm nitpicking here. Please forgive me. Just because you know what the nightmare is doesn't necessarily mean that it's over, Marge. The coffee maker that she has, I remember when I was very young, we had the exact same one. There's a huge, huge plot hole that I don't understand why nobody ever talks about, that is coming up very, very soon. And when I say hole, I'm not talking about the hole in Glenn's bed that he gets pulled through. But I will get to it. And it's not me nitpicking. It genuinely makes no sense. I could not imagine dating a neighbor growing up. I was, I was, well, I never grew up. I didn't grow up in the suburbs, but I, I, it, I had, I believe, well, yeah, when I was very young, anyway. Like I said, when I was in high school and shit, I didn't have a lot of friends, but when I was very young, I had friends that were in different groups. I had friends from school, or and friends from uh, who were on the same block, and friends that I knew from other areas. So they never all came together. I mean, it was like and Marge taking a drink from the vodka bottle that she had in the closet also got a huge laugh in the theater. I don't like this guy. The days before cell phones. I could just imagine if this were made today, her blowing up his iPhone. Wake the fuck up. Okay, we're coming up on one of the classic best moments in horror movie history. And I don't think many of you would disagree with me, but it is for sure one of the best moments in horror movie history, and definitely, without a doubt, one of the best moments in the entire franchise. Uh-uh. And I don't want to talk over it. Here it comes. Ah, it's so fucking awesome. I love it. But I also love the when she's stomping the phone, it's back to normal. And I will say this too: when the tongue protrudes from the mouth, it looks, or the way it juts out, it looks so much like a dick. So Marge managed to get shit faced in the 30 seconds it was since Nancy looked out into the hallway and saw her take her drink. I can't imagine living in a world where TV broadcasting went off at midnight. No, no, ma. Ah, another one of the best moments in our movie history. This I remember being cut in the TV version as well. It doesn't go on as long. I don't even think it hits the ceiling before it cuts. I think you just see the blood come out of the bed and then it cuts there. You definitely don't see the mother screaming in the doorway. The biggest plot hole in the movie is about to come up. I don't know if it's necessarily a plot hole, but it doesn't make any sense. It's coming up. I was listening to a commentary for part two on another podcast, and I thought it was funny because when Grady and Jesse are in the locker room and they're talking about Nancy's character and how she went. He says how she went crazy after she saw her boyfriend get butchered across the street from by some maniac. No, she doesn't. She doesn't see anything. I guess it's one of those things where a story changes as it goes from person to person to person. But you would think that they would try to keep the facts straight in the movie. She wants him to be there to arrest Freddy Krueger. I get that couldn't possibly go over too well. Exactly 20 minutes. Remember that. Exactly midnight. Remember that. Yeah, get yourself some 20, 10 minutes actually, because we're going to find out why in a second. Yeah, go watch the house. That's a good idea. Well, she can't go over there because she's barricaded inside with bars on the windows. Because if you're going to think mother. Okay, here we go. She is putting these booby traps together. She is putting gunpowder in the light bulb. She is securing a tripwire. She is nailing a sledgehammer to the wall. She what else does she do? She gets the gasoline and puts it in a glass jar by the basement stairs. She sets all of these traps and she does them in 10 minutes. I don't think so. And especially, I know she's been reading and studying that book, Booby Traps and Anti. What was it? Booby Traps and Improvised Anti Personnel Devices. I, you know, studying one book does not make you a an expert on these kinds of things. And even if you were an expert on these kinds of things, you wouldn't be able to do all this in 10 minutes. And it's exactly 10 minutes because she sets the alarm for another 10 minutes to sleep. And okay, wait a minute. Here's another plot hole that I never even fucking thought about. So Marge's drunk ass stumbled up the stairs to tuck her in and apologize for not telling her. Yet she didn't see. Well, she didn't trip over the tripwire. She didn't see the sledgehammer. She didn't see anything. This did not. I don't know how this turned into Mr. Science Theater 3000 all of a sudden, but especially with the movie that I love as much as I love this one. But come on. Oh no, she went downstairs to. She went over to tuck her mother in. But she still had to go up the stairs, didn't she? Again, when I do these commentaries, I don't watch the movies, I listen to them. So, and it's not like I could see the TV anyway. So, I mean, so okay, so that that makes it even more unbelievable because she set up all those booby traps in less than 10 minutes because she had to have that interaction with her mother. So it was like 7.5, 8 minutes, maybe, that she did all that stuff. Screwing the sledgehammer into the wall and putting it on a fucking hinge itself, that would have took several minutes. Several. And she didn't use an electric or power screwdriver either. She screwed that in with a regular handheld Phillips. I wonder if this movie had a script supervisor. Do script supervisors look for holes in the plot, or do they just make sure that the actors are saying their lines verbatim? Why? Why is wait? Is Cena about to show up in the body bag again, or no? No, it's just um, you know, you know what I would love to hear. I was going to say see, but and you know what? I first of all, before I say this, I have to say that I liked this moment here because it's I don't know what this is. Is this what Nancy's thinking about, or is this just for the for the benefit of the viewer? I don't know, but because some of the stuff Nancy didn't see or hear or wasn't there for, so she couldn't have had memories of them. So these couldn't be her thoughts. But I will say that one thing that always bothers me, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned this before, when you have a movie and you have a callback to something that happened earlier in the film, and it could either be something that somebody said, it's generally something somebody said, um, and then one of the main characters is thinking about it later. It's 99.9% of the time it's a different take. So the character that the main character is remembering saying, I went to the beach and paddled out to the shore. Just I just pulled it out of my ass. I don't even know what I'm talking about. But so let's say that's the way they said it in the movie, the way it was. So then later on, the main character would remember it as, I went to the beach and I paddled out to the shore. Cowabunga. No, I'm going a little too far. But it's always a different take. And I don't know why that is, because it's not what happened. Why are you fucking with us? It's bullshit. For somebody that has uh, a very limited amount of time, she's sure, loafing about here. I mean, doesn't she know that she's, on a clock? I'd be putting a little pep in the step, trying to find him. Okay, coming, screaming from the show himself really isn't gonna do my And now we're about to go through the Home Alone um, traps. Oh, I don't know if I said this. Did I say this already? Or I think I might have. I think I might have gone somewhere. But I was gonna say, or I was trying to say that I I think it would be interesting to have a cut of all of the movies without the manipulation on England's voice, so you could hear how he sounds when he's doing Freddy in his real voice. No, you're not. Ah. Okay, we got the sledgehammer. Break it down. Oh, not yet. Okay, she is screaming in a clear panic. There's nothing that could have been mistaken here. This girl is in immediate danger, and this fucking rookie, everything's gonna be all right. And I love when she says "get my dad" a million fucking times, and then finally says maybe I ought to tell the lieutenant. You think? I'm gonna split you in two. There's some sexual innuendo on that line. She must have broken every fucking window to get the. Yeah, do that. She must have broken every window to get the attention of either her father or the lieutenant or the rookie. I'll kill you slow. Oh, I always thought that was funny when he's trying to menace her or terrorize her by, creeping around the bend and scratching his claws. And she's behind him. He doesn't know. And she does that, hey! And he jumps. He gets scared. So I heard the stunt person really did fall down the steps on fire and then get up and start climbing up the steps while still on fire, because you don't see any cut until she hits him with the door. Yeah, he had to try the knob first, just in case she was a little too crazy or too far gone to remember to, you know, switch a lock. So when exactly did he leave those fire footprints? This also got a huge fucking laugh in the theaters. There are also some unanswered questions that return in or are that arise in part three, because Nancy says that her mother died in her sleep. So does that mean that she really did die when Freddy was on top of her strangling her, or when the ridiculous scene where he pulls her through the window and the door? Which, if you want to get far fetched, I mean, that shit is about as far fetched as it gets. And I think it was meant to be comical, but still, it's like, come on. I think it would have been more effective. I remember there was a still shot on one of the. I think it's the original media VHS, but there's a still shot of Freddy's hand coming through the window and grabbing onto Marge and her screaming. Now, if they wanted to leave that in, I think that would have been much more effective. Because of the position that he was in, he couldn't have, gotten her with the glove. Very reminiscent, or New Nightmare was very reminiscent of this. How do you know the secret now? I this is this is another thing that doesn't make any sense. Out of nowhere, she says, "I know the secret now," and that energy, he is he was thriving on her fear the whole time. So what what brought her to that conclusion? I don't understand. So Robert Shea said that, they had issues with the ending. That got a huge fucking laugh in the theaters. I remember they say you bottomed out when you can't remember the night before. Um, but um, they couldn't figure out how to end it. They had several different endings, and they ended up using three of the endings, and that was um, Nancy walking out into the sunlight and thinking, and you think everything's okay, and getting into the car, and then all this starts to happen.